Every morning, really early.
All right, good evening, everyone. We finally have our technical gremlins taken care of. I'll call to order the Keystone Heights Airport Authority Board of Directors meeting. It is June the 6th, and it is 6:05. As we begin our meeting, I will ask all of us to please mute your phone or turn it off, put it on vibrate, just to make sure. And ask you to please stand for prayer and then Pledge of Allegiance. Charlie, we do prayer for us.
Sure, if y'all pray with me or not. Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for the blessing of living in this free country, Lord. Thank you for all the brave soldiers that headed up on the beaches, Lord, in Europe and specifically France on this day so long ago, Lord, that we're still standing on their shoulders. Lord, we thank you for this airport that you've entrusted to the group meeting here tonight and to the city of Keystone, Lord, and just pray that you would be with us, help us to have wisdom and discernment as we make decisions regarding it, and our folks that fly in and out of it and pay rent for space to run businesses out of here, Lord. And we just ask anything that we do would reflect well upon your name and this community. All these things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Ms. Andrews, roll call, please.
Chair Kirkland.
Here.
Vice Chair Fryer.
Here.
Mr. Dejanay.
Here.
Mr. Ludwig.
Here.
Mr. Van Zandt.
Here.
Mr. Seymour.
Here.
And Ms. Rukowski is absent. Mr. Sherbach.
Here.
And Camp Blanding Representative Hunt.
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
All right, thank you. We'll let the record show that we do have a quorum tonight. Also let the record show that we have Vice Mayor Christine Thompson with us tonight. Good to have her, and Councilman Bobby Brown here, and Bill Prang, our airport engineer. Also as guest, we have Annie Knock, and we also have Brad Million with Reddish and White. They're going to be presenting a presentation tonight on our audit. And we have Mr. Jim Taylor, our attorney, with us tonight. So thanks to all of you for being here tonight. We have any public comment cards, Ms. Jennifer, that you're aware of?
I do not have any, no.
Okay. All right. The consent agenda emailed out to you earlier was the consent agenda, which includes the April 2023 financials, as well as the May 2nd meeting minutes and our May 26th special call meeting minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Charlie, all right. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right. Audit report. Brad and Lucy.
Thank you, Mr. David. Is there a preferred place to stand or sit down? Or
Come up closer only because of the microphone here, and you can stand or sit,
might be
whatever your pleasure.
Let me sit, and then I'll point to Annie if I need some help. For those of you that don't know, I've been with Reddish and White for 20 years, and Annie might be a new face for you. She took over from Kara last fall when Kara abruptly decided to go work for the Union County. We're sorry to see Kara leave, but we're thrilled to have Annie here with 8 years of CPA experience. So she seems to be fitting in seamlessly, so I just wanted to introduce her to everybody. As far as the audit goes, we had a clean opinion, no new findings, and your balance sheet is still strong. So those are the three main items I wanted to get across. I know that Mike had sent everybody a copy of the report. Usually what I do is kind of point out some of the highlights where you could maybe follow along, or I don't see it up on the screen, but I can kind of.
We have a copy here. I have a couple of hard copies if someone would like to see them. It's not in your packet, but like I say, like Brad said, that had been sent out earlier, everyone, the draft copy.
There's some key numbers we like to point out. You have your income statement on page 10. It's called the Statement of Revenues and Expenses. And we always show, well, not always, but oftentimes we're having an operating loss, and that sometimes raises people's eyebrows, like we're not doing so good. And we always like to point out that you have this large depreciation and amortization number as one of your major expenses. And that's because we're depreciating all of your infrastructure out there that's funded by capital grants or free money. So you guys are in kind of a quasi-business type situation where it'd be nice if you could show a profit, but you'd have to charge quite a bit to recover all of your depreciation. So each year, there typically is a loss shown down there for your operations. That's one of the main items I always like to stress coming in here. You've also had some pretty large numbers as far as your fuel sales. It went up to over $1 million this year. That's why your cost of fuel is up to $800,000. We had some new lease accounting regulations where we had to split up your rent income and call some of it interest income. There's a disclosure on that. We have to capitalize your 3 leases in your warehouses to figure out the net present value of the future cash flows, and then put this giant number on your balance sheet and slowly amortize it so we can be similar to everybody else in the world. And it was just a huge accounting change that they kept putting off, and then they finally brought it into play. So when you compare it to the prior year, you're going to see a lot of different numbers in there, and that kind of explains quite a few of them. You also sold substantially all of your timber. So we had extra $80,000 in income there, and then there was a large number that we had in inventory, about $80,000. So that was another expense. So there was a lot of one-time things and some pretty large numbers there. And I always like to stress on the next page, on page 11, the statement of cash flows. We have that big depreciation number, but that's not money going out in your pocket, so to speak. We look from operations, you're showing a positive 126,000 from operations, and last year you had 137 positive numbers. So if those numbers were negative, then we might want to be concerned over time. But again, that depreciation number does tend to skew things a little bit. If we flip 2 pages forward to your balance sheet, you can see that the numbers are substantially the same. Your balance sheet on page 9. There you go. Yeah. But then there's a couple large numbers that are new this year compared to last year. We've got this lease receivable and this thing called deferred inflows of resources, which is kind of like a pseudo liability. Over 1.1 million on both of them. So those numbers those are new because of that new accounting pronouncement. And just to emphasize that accounting pronouncement a little bit, on page 15, we have all these new disclosures where we show the value of these leases, the net present value based on your imputed interest rate at the beginning of the year, and so on and so forth. It only took 80 hours of CPE to understand this stuff, so I'm trying to summarize it without blinding you too much. But then we're showing how much money you're going to, when you receive that rent payment, you used to just call it rent expense. Now we're saying rent income. Now I'm saying a portion of it's interest income. That's all they're trying to do, but then they make you put it on the balance sheet if it's longer than 12 months and so on and so forth. So that's what all this new disclosure's touching upon.
So this is, because when we had the exit review for the draft version of this, Brad had mentioned, because I was saying, okay, is this just something new that you guys are doing? He said, no, this is actually above them. This is a national auditing guideline change that's come about, that now they're having to implement and show these values in this format. So it's a little more work, for the accounting side of it, but it is new to us this year because, again, it's a new regulation that they had to implement in the audit.
Businesses are required to have this too. It's not just restricted to governments. They're trying to get the whole world in kind of the same kind of accounting situation for comparability purposes.
So are they calling it interest, almost like an investment?
It's like a rate of return, yeah.
Okay, so because they're longer term leases,
Yeah, because we're saying at the beginning of the year, if you would have gone out and got a loan, it would have been maybe about a 3.5% interest rate, certain amount of guesstimate there. So, okay, over the long haul, this money that's come in, a portion of it is going to be interest because we're going to recognize the whole thing now, the net present value of future cash flows.
Wow. What if the breaks out of the lease?
Well, then each year you have to
It'll adjust.
recalibrate and calculate and count the hairs on your head, so on and so forth. It's yeah. And then at the end of that, you have your fuel truck. So we also have to put that on there, and we're saying that you guys substantially own that, and we have to depreciate it. And that's at the top of page 16, where we have some disclosures there about capitalizing the fuel truck since it's a 3-year lease. So there was a couple different changes there. And then the following page are capital assets. That's always one of the major disclosures. You have so much activity with all your grants that you're getting and all the improvements you're making to your runways and taxi lights, so on and so forth. Just wanted to point that out. And then flipping to the last page, we have, well, page 28, we kind of disclosed certain things we're required to disclose, and one of them is all the adjustments we make. Now, this year, we kind of changed things up, and we put more emphasis for your accountant to go ahead and do more each year because we have this independence issue. We can't come in and prepare your financial statements, make all these adjustments, do all this depreciation without jumping through a lot of hoops. And more auditors are trying to get somebody else to do the work before we come in and audit it. So we're not basically auditing our own work. So we sat down with Rebecca and we really need you to come in and make these adjustments to the books for the payables and the receivables and so on and so forth. And so she took a stab at it, but we ended up still having 4 adjustments that we didn't really plan on it. And then we had to revise the depreciation schedule and so forth. And then the management and discussion and analysis, which is pages 3 to 9, that also was supposed to come from you guys, and she couldn't do it because it was during the tax season. So we had kind of agreed upon price, assuming that she was going to come through and do all these things, and then we ended up spending a fair amount of extra time, and so we asked David if we could bump up our fee to $2,500 for all this extra time we spent. So that was kind of a segue into one of your items that you have on your agenda.
Yeah, that's the first item on my items that we'll talk about. I wanted Brad to explain that to you so that you would understand why the additional cost is there and that, we need to come up and pay for that. Rebecca did do some of the work, but again, there were things that didn't get done that they had to do in order to complete the audit. So any questions for Brad about anything that he shared about the audit?
Do you think that Rebecca will be able to handle this for this fiscal year, or?
That's an excellent question.
Was it a lack of ability, or was it just her time constraints?
Probably a little bit of both, but I'm concerned that you're probably going to be subject to a single audit this year because you're going to expend over $750,000 in federal funds. Right. So there's going to be more of a requirement on her part to come through. And then, she's got October, November, but it never gets done then. And then tax season comes around. So, I've been working with her for 10 years and she hasn't really shown the initiative to really want to dive in and do it. So I'm kind of getting to that point where it's kind of, we're going to give Dave a format where if he wants to go out and maybe get somebody else.
Okay.
We work with the town of Bronson preparing for the audit. They pay us $15,000 just to get ready for the Purvis Gray to come in and charge them $40,000 for the audit. I mean, the prices are going nuts, and they're the size of Lottie. They're like, so the world's changed, and this documentation's just gotten crazy. And every 3 years, we have an outside CPA firm come in and look at our stuff. We pay them at least $10,000 so they can look through all our stuff with a fine tooth comb. Yeah, it's stressful for me.
So that's a peer review.
Yeah, every 3 years, and this is just like, okay, you got to have this, you got to have that. So when Rebecca doesn't do these things, we're going, well, she's a CPA and we're relying on her, and that's why we're maintaining our independence, because she can take responsibility for this work. But then it comes into question whether she can. So now we've got a third set of eyes looking at our work just to make sure we maintain that independence. So it's kind of where this industry's headed.
Is there any way that, and we do have a small staff,
Yeah.
is there any way that staff could be taught to recognize some of these things and bring them forward so that we collect them and then
That's another great,
respect to, you know,
yeah.
Rebecca, but then maybe like, okay, here they are. I mean,
You get what you pay for with your accounting staff. And this is kind of, 5-10 year level accountant. Like Rebecca does, her focus is tax work. I don't even do any taxes, because we have, it's getting so specialized. You had Cindy Ward, who works for us, but she worked for you guys one year. Yeah. That was people like that can handle, but she's not going to stick around for $20 or $30. And, I don't know how much, it's like, so it's a
but
challenge.
do you think that's achievable? Is there some way we can have a highlighted list that the employees or the airport manager can look at and just like the timber sales here? That was something that was missed?
Well, if you sell it all, then your inventory should be adjusted significantly. So, yeah, it's looking at the balance.
Something that we said out loud.
Yeah, I mean,
So all the timber,
Yeah.
does that get, I don't know how, I've never seen Rebecca Williams at one of these meetings, so how does she get communicated with? I'm just asking the question. I don't know.
I don't think she comes in and does the bank recs and makes sure that, she does a fair amount, my understanding, but then at the end of the year, we need to take it to another step and let's check these balances, and all these things need to be adjusted for what's transpired.
Right.
I mean, the inventory was adjusted properly, but the property, okay, what's considered a fixed asset? You do these improvements, we go through the repairs and maintenance. No, we don't want to depreciate that. That's just a planning phase. We need to reclassify that and put that in construction in progress. And we need to keep track of these and show the details and all that. It just takes time.
Right.
And so there's got to be a commitment there.
Through the chair, I would offer something along the lines, and somebody can formalize and make it a motion, or we need to discuss. Makes no difference to me, but maybe we pay you or someone like you, if you're the auditor, maybe you can't do it. I don't understand the CPA and auditing world, but to put together, okay, here is the scope of work for the Keystone Heights Airport Board accountant, and present that to Rebecca and see if she's even willing to do that. I mean, she's done our taxes for years, but this isn't tax work. You're very correct. And I've stood lots and lots of audits. So it always makes me a little nervous if I detect apprehension, tension, or anything in the auditor's voice. And the young lady back here is ready to jump in, but I'm hearing that out of you loud and clear.
Well,
And if she's not, then we just go out with a bid for it.
so Brad and Annie and I, in the exit review, talked about this. And so there's a list of things that they need as the auditor that that a CPA needs to do to basically provide all of the information that they need to do their audit. And have that separation of duties, because it's the same for them as it is that's why Lori doesn't do reconciliation of the checking account. We bring an outside person in to do that, to keep that separated, and they don't ding us for it. So, so what we talked about was, first of all, sitting down with Rebecca, having a conversation with her about this audit, what was done, what wasn't done, knowing too, with what Brad would put together, because he mentioned the city of Bronson, using a similar format that they have for going out for bids, to have a separate entity do that work. So he's going to get that to us, and or I think Andy's already got it to me, actually. So we're waiting really to get Rebecca
Sure.
and have a meeting with her, go over this. It won't affect the audit because the audit's done. It's just a matter of for this coming year. And as Brad said, because we have these projects going on, it's going to exceed that $750,000 limit, which requires not only our regular audit to be done, but a single audit to be done in addition to that for those projects. So there's going to be even more this coming year that we need to address.
Particular project.
What happens if you receive federal funds from FAA and so on and so forth, that total over 750,000, but you also have to spend that much in one fiscal year. And if you do, it triggers a single audit. So it's not necessarily towards one project. You have to, one of the most time consuming parts of it is adjusting your books to full accrual for all the different grants. Okay, how much do we need to adjust any payables for some year-end work done with the grants? Now we need to match up the revenue to make sure it matches with the grants, the expenditures. Then you total it all up. Then you got to look through all the grant documents and go, is this federal money or state money, or it's split in half, or it's, so you got to make this big old thing. And 3 or 4 years ago, we did it here, and you'll see on one of the pages is the schedule of federal awards, and it looks nice and concise and stuff, but it takes a little while just to.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
it depends on the number of projects. I think back then we had 6 or 7. There was going on.
Right.
So we had to add these 3 over. No, those were state. Okay, so we're going to keep track of those separate because that also triggers an audit at the state level if they add up to 750. So you've got all these little things going on there that takes there's got to be a commitment of 40, 50 hours for somebody preparing for that. It's a lot of work.
So the strategy was meet with Rebecca, the 3, 4 of us meet with Rebecca, go over what we lacked this year, find out if she has an interest in next year, knowing that there's going to be a single audit in addition to the regular audit. So once we get her response, then we'll have to come back to the board and say, all right, we're going to have to go out and bid for a separate accounting entity, CPA, to do all the prep work for the audit.
And it could just be one individual that's qualified. I had one over on the East Coast, but she retired. And I'm working with a couple others, but I don't think I want to recommend them. So, you're going to get the James Moore and those kind of people, and it's like, but, it's just, that's a starting place to try to. And we'll still put it in our engagement letter. If we have to do all this work, we're going to have to charge this much because we're also going to have to do the work plus pay somebody to look over our shoulders so we keep our independence. So it's just it's just the audit environment is just getting more costly and more costly. It's just crazy. It's just the documentation standards. They have this checklist is 21 pages, so we document that we're still independent, and it's like, so.
And thank goodness the IRS is hiring extra help.
Well, it's completely away from the IRS. I got tax guys going, man, you auditors, you get looked at. We can do anything in the IRS, and that, not the guys I work with, but other people. We never get checked. It's like, so anyway.
All right, any questions for Brad or Annie?
I appreciate the input, though. Those are good questions.
Thank y'all for doing the extra work.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
All right, moving on, reports, Mr. Prang, project updates.
Okay. I'd like to report on 2 projects. The first one is your construction project, the taxi lane rehab. On May 24th, we did a punch list inspection with the contractor and airport staff. Tabulated a list of things that weren't quite perfect, and since then, the contractor's pretty much taken care of all of those. There's really only 1 piece of work remaining, maybe 2. They're out here every couple of days watering sod, make sure the sod grows in. That's just an ongoing obligation they have. If they could get a little help from rain, they wouldn't have to run the water truck as much, but as soon as they laid the sod, it quit raining. So second thing is next Tuesday, with Wednesday as the backup date, they're going to do the final striping. So what you see now, the yellow striping is just a half spray application of paint. It doesn't have the glass reflective beads in it. We wait 30 days to let the volatile compounds in the asphalt volatilize into the sky, and then we do the final coat of striping. So next Tuesday and or Wednesday, you'll see some short-term closures of single taxi lanes at a time. My inspector will be here through that. I'm sure he'll coordinate with Mike so they don't get surprised. The weather would, of course, too windy or any kind of moisture, wet, would affect the striping schedule. But right now, that's scheduled for Tuesday next week. And we'll do a final inspection probably maybe 2 or 3 weeks down the road. We could schedule it as soon as the day after the striping, but I asked Mike earlier when I came in, what's the feedback been? I like to give it a week or so to let the users maybe give us some feedback on something we overlooked. So I also like the grass to actually start to turn green before we give them a final inspection. So they're working on a pay application, which I've been talking to David about. Going to try to get it in here tomorrow. And the project is going to finish under budget a little bit, maybe 3 or 4%. No big deal. That money doesn't come back to you. It's grant money. So both of those, in that case, money would go back to both of the grant agencies when we close out. Any questions on taxi lane rehab?
On the spray application.
Yes.
We've had several county taxmen, maybe Mike's, I've done it too, but that paint is gonna be so close to the ground. And doesn't it have something that makes it dry faster? Some people are worried about overspray.
Yeah, so it's sprayed from a nozzle. The nozzle's like 4 inches from the ground, a little spray tip, like a 40-degree spray tip. And they throw the glass beads, or the machine drops the glass beads right behind it. You know, when winds get up above 10, sometimes it'll overspray, but it typically won't overspray more than maybe 2 feet.
Okay.
And if it's spraying like that, it's gonna be a sloppy spray job and we'll stop it.
That's kind of what Mark Barton had alluded to, that it was a rapid dry paint and it's so close to the ground and so.
It's actually drying.
Off the ground and it's dry as soon as you.
It's drying within a few minutes, and if it's, again, if it's windy enough, if you're worried about spraying onto a building or a parked vehicle nearby, that's too windy to spray, we'll stop. My apologies, I didn't bring you a copy.
You're fine.
Anything else on the taxi lane rehab? Okay, next project is really just kind of a reminder, we talked about this last month. This is the lighting and navigator replacement on runway 1129. You have an item coming up in, I believe it's under David's items. The DOT did agree to revise the scope of the project to allow you to also replace the runway end identifier lights at the end of runway 5 and the end of runway 23. The project has a bid for one of those light units on runway 11. And instead of providing one for the project, the contractor is willing to provide 3 at a direct cost extension of $19,000 each. So I brought this back again, the short little spreadsheet looking thing. This is just a quick cost accounting of the project budget. The grant from the DOT is $785,000 total. The grant amendment you have today only changes the language, does not change the dollar amount. You've already paid us $57,595 for design. The base bid construction to TCA Electric, you've awarded $594,400. The additive alternate 1 is the runway end identifier light on runway 11, $19,000. We agreed last month that we would provide part-time inspection and construction admin for $36,170. The next item is addition of the reels on runway 5, runway 23, and that leaves you a contingency amount in the project of $39,835. So the spreadsheet was all just a reminder. Honestly, David, probably, if somebody's being precise about the way we conduct business, you should probably adopt the resolution for the grant, and then I'll stand back up to ask for approval of the change order. So I think the wheels are in motion to accept the grant resolution from the DOT, but somebody might criticize if you approve the change order before you actually have permission in the grant. Am I right? Am I right, sir? I told Justin earlier, it's not good when the attorney knows your first name, but I also feel an obligation now to follow rules that I might not otherwise
But I don't
follow.
have your phone number memorized.
555. So I can answer questions on the change order, but I suggest you hold a motion on the change order. We agreed to this in principle last week, but before David signs the actual change order document, you actually need a voice vote. But I would wait and do that until after you accept the grant changes from DOT. Did you have a question?
Yes, just clarification. So at the end of the lighting project, then, we will have reels on all 4 runways?
3 runways.
3.
3.
You do not have reels on 2.9, and I think that's probably an old judgment call that we agree with. Reels
Because
on
of-
2.9 would be confused with reels
With
on
2, 3,
2.5.
or I mean, yeah,
2.3.
yeah,
Got it.
3, yeah,
Right there.
yeah.
So because you have nearly conjoined runways,
Correct, right, that
they're
makes
so
sense.
close that I think it would be confusing. So if
And also, we are
you're
going
looking for
to have,
2.9, turn on the 2.5 reels
Yeah.
and then vector over a couple degrees. Right on
And we will
autopilot. You're not
also
taking my
have-
advice.
Pappies on which runways?
You'll have them on all 4 runways.
All 4?
Yeah.
Yes.
You
Okay.
have broken pappies on 11.29 right now.
Right,
We're going to give you ones that work.
11 works,
Excellent.
but 2 9s are out.
Yeah.
And Mike and I talked about it, and because of the expense, and we knew that they were coming.
Replaced.
Pappy spare parts are just, that's crazy right now. Anybody that gets a lightning strike, you're lucky if you can find a part and you're going to pay pretty for it.
Well, years ago, big airports were the only ones that had them. We had to actually let the runway and land. We can still do that.
Yeah.
okay, very good.
So
All right, so what's our first step here? Bill?
Well, I-
We had 2 or 3
no,
things
I
going
only
on.
need one thing from the board, and I think you should wait to act on the change order for TCA Electric on the reels until after you adopt the resolution from DOT on the grant amendment.
Okay,
Is
that's,
that under your item?
yeah, that's amendment number 2.
That's it, yeah.
Okay,
So David, Dajanay asked me earlier too about the schedule. TCA has their contract. They're signing it first. I was asking them to hold the signature of it until they could sign the change order at the same time. If we get them under contract here before the end of June, we can have a notice to proceed, a quick kickoff meeting with them. They have 90 days of procurement. All of these items, the reels, mainly the pappies, but the edge lights as well. It's going to take 3 to 4, maybe 5 months to get that equipment. And it's only about 3 to 4 weeks of work. I don't think they'll mobilize a crew to the site until they have all the components. So in all reality, that work probably is getting done more like September, October, November-ish timeframe. So we'll monitor their procurement and give you plenty of heads-up notice on that. But I think that work's not going to take place for a couple of months because of procurement. And I will stand back up
okay.
when you tell me.
So in your packet was included a copy of the Amendment 2 that Ms. Donna Whitney with FDOT provided us. As Mr. Prang just said, there's no change in the dollar amounts for the grant, but it's a change of the verbiage and the scope of the work to include the items that he just mentioned. So we need a motion to,
Is this the amendment to public transportation grant agreement?
Yes.
yes.
And the project number is 431288.
-2.
-2.
Yes.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the amendment to the public transportation grant agreement from FDOT, financial project number 431288-2.
All right, do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Any other questions for Mr. Prang about the amendment?
Yeah, the DOT rep couldn't be here tonight, but I told her I could probably answer questions on her behalf. I helped her write the language.
The main thing is they've provided 785,000, we're only gonna be using 600 and we don't have to pay anybody.
It's 100% grant, and that contingency is available for
Very
things
nice.
we might find during construction that were unforeseen. It's always good to have a contingency.
Yep. All right, we have a motion and a second. There's no more discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right,
So on the change order then, this would be change order 1. This is the single-page document. The descriptor of that is near the top center of the page where it says description. It's to increase the quantity of pay item number 21 by a quantity of 2 to include replacement of the reels on runway 5, runway 2, 3. It's $19,000 for each unit. So the current contract value is $613,400. The addition of $38,000 brings the total contract value after this change order to $651,400.
all right.
Okay, I'll make that motion that we approve change order 1 for FDOT Financial Project 431288-3 to an amount not to exceed $651,400.
All right, do I hear a second?
Second?
Any other questions? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, the motion carries. All right, thank you, Mr. Bryan. Okay, we'll do that.
In blood.
Yeah. Always. All right, moving on to items under my agenda part. You heard Brad Millian explain to us the need for the additional $2,500, the extra work that they had to perform to complete the audit. And we need a motion to approve that expenditure.
I'll make the motion.
All right, sir. Mr. Seamer, do I hear a second?
I'll second. In the amount of $2,500, correct?
Correct. All right. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. We've addressed Amendment 2 already. Back in December, we had a workshop where we discussed some verbiage, one particular passage in particular on rent, the verbiage that's in our lease contracts. We had prepared that and then had Mr. Taylor look that over. And in your packet toward the back, you have 2 pages there. The first one basically shows the track changes in a Microsoft Word document. And then the next page behind that shows the actual verbiage. Just to remind you, we had revised this verbiage because our lease contracts had stipulations in there about the use of the CPI for increases. Some of the stipulation also in some of the older contracts had limitations as far as like a 3% max. So got with Mr. Taylor and discussed how do we change this? How do we change this verbiage? Because this year, we see that impact significantly because of inflation. You see it in everything that you do. We're seeing it here. I won't steal Mike's thunder, but he's going to tell you something about the budget coming up. So we needed to come up with a way that we could do an adjustment that would be reflective of what we were seeing in our costs. So we actually approved this verbiage at our workshop, but unfortunately in January, a lot of things started happening and we never brought it to the board for approval. So that's why it's on the agenda tonight for us to approve the adoption of this new lease language for our hangars.
I get why we're going away from the CPI, and I apologize on not, what are we tying it to? This lease is an effect of an annual adjustment. Is it tied to something?
The annual adjustment, as it states in here, what we would do is come to the board at a public meeting in December. We would, from our QuickBooks and accounting, come up with an adjustment based on what our costs have increased for the year. And that would be the percentage that we would bring to the board for your review and then approval.
Okay, so it's not tied to something that can be tracked.
Yes, it's tied to QuickBooks. It's tied to our income and expenses.
Yeah, I always think of like reimbursement for mileage, and we used to, say we're gonna reimburse it for whatever the IRS audited, or not audit, but, rate
Rate.
is. It's up to like 60-something cents a
Correct.
mile now.
Yeah, it is.
It'd be like 25,
Yep.
So this isn't, okay, I'm with you. So we'll review it annually
Correct.
based on what we've seen,
That's correct.
but it's not a New York Stock Exchange kind
No.
of different item. Okay. got it.
Correct.
I'm
Well,
with you.
we were kind of trapped by that 3% cap. And there's been some years, we don't have to increase it. There have been a few years, I remember back, just one or two, I think it's maybe when 2008 when the economy tanked or something. We elected
COVID.
not to, COVID was another
COVID, we
one.
didn't do it.
But if we do, now we're not limited at 3%. We might have to go at 5% or 6%. Is that not correct or a good way?
But really,
That's on everybody, whether you're a private tea hanger guy or whether you're a business.
Everybody.
it's
Yes.
based on a review of income and expenses.
Okay, got it.
Does that include everything else, the future projects and the firm also? The Sportsman's Club and?
Yeah, it would include all of the tenants. There are a couple of tenants that have a 5-year contract in place now that have a 3% cap. So I'm not sure that we can change those. I'd have to run that by Mr. Taylor. But the other thing with the firm that you brought it up, that contract that was done 24 years ago had verbiage written in it that their max increase is 1.9% per year. And so unfortunately, the board 24 years ago did that. We're having to live with it. But
How long was that lease that was signed for 24 years ago?
25.
25 years.
Yeah. So next
Yeah.
November of 2024, their lease is up for,
And then we'll have to renegotiate the whole thing with them.
well, we'll renegotiate, but you remember all of the details on the limitations and the verbiage. Would you like to share that?
Well, I don't recall it with enough specificity that I would be comfortable reporting it the way it was, but we have a number of issues with the firm that we're going to have to sort out when it comes time to negotiating a new arrangement with them.
There's some verbiage there that appears that if we renew, that it stays the same. Essentially, like Mr. Taylor says, there's some things that's just got to be worked out. They have about 250 acres.
330.
Under how much?
330.
330. I forgot about the off-road. Their main campus is about 250. The off-road brings it up to 330. So that's just something that we've got to negotiate with them. So we plan to start that about 6 months ahead of that November deadline and just see where we go with it.
So that's in 2024. It's up.
November of 2024, correct.
Okay.
That's one of the things that's really frustrating, you'll find when you get on the board. There's agreements been made long before we even came on here, and some of them were sweetheart deals. But legally and contractually, we're bound, I guess. And it's really frustrating. Because if you look at what the square footage of acreage over there is charged per square foot, it's not even close to what it should be.
Right. All right, so back to our topic here, the lease language. What's the pleasure of the board? You still good with the language that basically approved in the workshop in December? By the way, Mr. Taylor did look this language over as well, and from a legal standpoint, was good with it.
And this is just a 1-year annual lease, or is this a multiple-year lease, or?
Our leases, basically for the first, it's a 1-year lease, and then after that 1-year anniversary, it goes month to month.
Okay, I didn't see that in here, and
Well, it's not a part of this verbiage that we need to revise. It is, that language is in the other parts of the
About the
lease.
increase of the, if you need a motion, do we need to know what the chapter or the sub-paragraph and all that is? Does that need to be stated with the motion?
No, because this section is part of our standard contract for hangar leases, so
Okay, so it's a
Yeah.
part of the lease. This is actually written into the lease.
that's correct.
I just pulled out the rent paragraph from the standard template and release.
Okay.
Reference paragraph 3 of the rental agreement.
Yeah, of what we need to
Yeah.
change.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we adapt paragraph 3 of our boilerplate lease agreements to reflect the changes regarding increases of rent.
All right, do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, any other questions or discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, hearing none, the motion carries. The last item that I have, I provided you with a copy of Section 12 out of our bylaws that deal with non-interference. Just a reminder to all of us that we can have discussions with Mike. In fact, anything that you may have come up, you should go to Mike with it first and have a discussion with him. If you have a question about anything else, finances or et cetera, still go through Mike with that question, and then he'll get answers and get it back to you. One of the things we need to be careful of is that we can't say to people, employees, all right, full-time or part-time, we cannot say to them, you can't do this, or I'm not going to do this for you. We can't interfere in that way, okay? So just as a reminder, use Mike as your first point of contact when you have an issue come up here at the airport, and then he can take it from there and pull together whatever it takes, whether it's stuff from Lori or from his office for answers to your questions, okay? All right, we good with that? Everybody good? All right, moving on. Mr. Fryer, airfield updates.
Nothing really to report other than, I mean, all the grass is mowed. The new road that Bradford County building the DEO grant is basically complete. I think they got to do some striping, some sodding. And I did ask Jason Dodd this morning. Brent Walters at the firm had mentioned that an empty great blacktop road might be a temptation for drag racing. Imagine anybody coming out of the racetrack wanting to go down that road and see how fast they can go. So I asked Jason if there was money in the project or if they could use funds from that to buy some of those concrete barricades. I think I asked him for 8, but maybe I'll get 6. But we want to put them across that until the DOT tie-in comes. So he thinks he can
Might be a
pull that
good
off.
idea.
And that way we don't have anybody out there leaving the
Tempted.
firm going down that road.
I still have my old Camaro. I hadn't even thought about it.
There's a little bit of a curve in it, Charlie, so it's not all straight, so.
But that's all I've got.
Can't we rent those?
Well, if there's money in the grant that we could purchase them, you know, you can lift them with forklifts. You can
Yeah,
move them around.
I know exactly about them.
So one of my thoughts was when that road does become active, we want to keep them away from heading down to G2 out of the RPZ, the runway protection zone. And I thought that when that did get opened, if it's a year from now, that we would maybe put a gate there and fence, kind of curving them down towards the firm. But if they've got money left, and they do, they have a lot of money left because they didn't do the tie-in road, why not get the money out of that, and then we'll just move the barriers to form that curve.
Yeah, we could get double use out of them.
Now, if he can't do it, he's not going to do anything unethical. He's checking with his boss. to see if that's possible, but he thought that was money well spent, and it doesn't cost us a dime. The money's there.
He gave a report at the county commissioner meeting this morning. I was there and basically shared what Mr. Fryer just shared. There are a few other things that they're doing. They have a deadline of June the 30th, but that deadline includes all the construction work, all of the paperwork too, for all of the expenses. So all of that has to be turned in by that deadline. So they've done a great job. If you haven't been down there to look at it, go check it out. And it's going to be a real asset to the future growth and development of that west side area for us. So it's a good thing. Money well spent. We appreciate Bradford County taking that, getting that for us, that grant, and implementing it. Anything else?
That's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Jumping down to safety and security, Mr. Ludwig.
Just as a disclaimer at the very beginning, don't worry, I'm not going to keep everybody here late tonight, so I'll say that up front. First thing on my agenda is under the security section. I did reach out to Maria, and she did update me on some of the questions that I had addressed in our previous meeting about the security plan. And from my understanding is that March 15th is the deadline for that, and for that to be turned in for review, and it is good for 2 years. So throughout this process, you know, I'm having to kind of catch up from behind, but you know, now I'm more familiar with it, and I just asked if, you know, I could receive a finalized copy once it's been reviewed and approved. There may be some things, if it looks like the one that I have previously received, you know, there's some things in there that may need to be adjusted or updated. So, and she did inform me as well that there are some new requirements there that she was asked to provide 5 pages worth of new requirements of some things. So I look forward to seeing that and then kind of going forward with that once that falls into place. And as far as on the security plan, just for clarification, because going back and rewatching our previous meeting, when I know I addressed many things that evening, when I did bring up about our security systems that we do have around here with the gate systems and the gate codes and those type of items, just for clarity, because I have talked to people since then, some of the tenants around here, and I think it came across the wrong way, and I know it kind of got pulled in different directions by many different people. I do understand the system that we have, and my biggest concern in our last meeting was just making sure that we were being responsible and have accountability for the system we have. I wasn't looking to try to change the system or to upgrade the system to what I'm used to working with in through my for the airports that I've worked at. You know, I know that's not even possible, and I wasn't even trying to suggest that. I was just using that as a reference guide as far as I know at that level, this is what is there. And I know the GA level where we are is a totally different thing. And again, my concern was, you know, are we, for liability reasons, you know, are we doing everything that we can, you know, and being responsible with what we have? So just for clarity, I just kind of wanted to bring that forward again. The next thing under security, at the end of the meeting, it was asked by Mr. Seymour about possibly about carrying a firearm on airport property for protection purposes out in the wildland areas and all. Now, I know on the TSA guidelines that you had mentioned, from what I've looked into a little bit of it, TSA basically, they really don't, those guidelines don't pertain to us as a GA. That's more under the indexed airports like the Part 139.
Part 139, right. Yeah.
So I don't know if I can suggest that, you know, and I think that may be something that either maybe Mike, you may be able to address, or Maria may be able to address as far as the airport manager, because I don't have the authority really as far as just being a board member, a security board member to be able to provide, I believe, what you need. I think that has to come from probably the the highest level position on the airport itself, and I don't know if there's guidelines, if somebody might be able to direct us to guidelines to say, okay, well, this is what we have in place already, because, as it was, mentioned, that there is the hunting that does go on this property. So if there's some guidelines that we're following through that maybe those guidelines would also pertain to you being able to do with your request. So
Okay.
I just kind of wanted to see if that's possible for,
I can check into it.
okay.
One thing for clarification too, I told y'all at that meeting, I did not believe firearms were allowed. Since then, understand, well, the Sportsman's Club is our oldest tenant here. And they used to be able to hunt within the airfield, I think. And then when 9/11 happened, or was it before that, they were told they couldn't hunt in here?
I don't remember the date.
Okay. So I thought that's where it came from. However, yet, when Mr. Richard does the Operation Outdoor, are they using shotguns?
Arrows.
So guns, I think, are allowed.
Yeah.
Well, that was the thing. And when I looked at it and looked under the general aviation part of the TSA guidelines, I called around the TSA and I could not find to talk to
I
anybody.
think you can. I mean, Mike can check into it further, but I believe you could.
Let's let Mr.
Yeah.
You know,
Sherbach check into it and get back to us.
that was the thing, that you could just put up a 4-foot fence. And my nephew is a retired lieutenant from the Lockett County Sheriff's Office, and he was over their aviation. And so he dealt a lot with Gainesville Airport. And they had and he was over the SWAT team, and they had a long-range shooting range.
Yeah, they do.
And it's just behind a 4-foot.
Yeah, but it's not in the airfield proper. I'm familiar with that. The police range is out there off of the industrial park. What we're talking about is the airfield proper, once you get inside the fence. But I believe you can for what you want.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that'd be easy to find, get an answer on that.
The next item I have here is incident review, and I'll just briefly cover that. But the small incident that we had out here at the beginning of last month there, on the ramp area there, and I just happened to be here that particular day, and when it all kind of played out, none of us actually witnessed it. For those of us that were all here, we didn't actually witness it as it was going on, but it was right after the fact, and it definitely stood out and looked odd. Something didn't seem right after the fact, but fortunately in that situation, everything went fairly smooth as can be, and there was no major damage and no major injuries. I just want to say that just, watching and seeing firsthand the response by airport staff, and improvising and coming up with plans to be able to make adjustments to do what needed to be done to handle the situation that was good to see, very positive there. Clay County Sheriff's Office, I believe, was here fairly quick and responded appropriately, and were able to document and do what they need. And the only other question I know that was we all kind of spoke about that day was about FAA involvement. And I think we kind of learned through that process and all. And I know you were able to make some phone calls to see. And I believe all that was the correct, because there was no other involvement. There was no, we didn't have a controller misguide the airplane. We didn't have other entity involved there that possibly, or fatality or major injuries. So I think all went very well on that end, considering the fact it was a very, very fortunate day there that it didn't go sideways. So
Yeah, if you haven't seen the video, we can get you a copy of it. The video came from MHT Rockland, their security camera on the corner of their building. It's scary when you see it.
I saw the one that Joni had.
That may be the same one. I'm sure it's the same one.
And now the guy from MHT Rockland was not happy. He was like, if it wouldn't have stopped, he would have gotten it.
Yeah.
He said at one point he was coming towards the building, and the gentleman that was out there helping him said he was in a position, he didn't know if he needed to start to run out the building to go in the opposite direction, and then when he turned and then went the other way, that's when he caught the wing of the other plane, and it whipped him around. But we're very fortunate in that situation. It's just one of those crazy things that, that's why they call them accidents, because, it's just uncalled for, unexpected. So that's how I have on that one. As far as my next one is tenant familiarization, I've tried to, throughout this time, go around and trying to slowly get around to meet and get familiar with all of our people here, tenants on the airfield, and just kind of address concerns of people and just kind of get to be more of a face-to-face, one-on-one relation. And it's a slow process, but I have been able to do that, and I appreciate everybody's concerns, and I appreciate them taking the time to speak with me. And the last thing I have is hazard removal. During one of my first visits here to the airport, kind of going around and seeing some of the airfield side, there's an antenna array that had, I think it's an existing project that might be something, and I don't even know if anything's been done to it since then. We had talked about it at one point in time, Scott, or is it already?
Don't look at me.
Is it already?
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, okay, so it's already resolved? Okay.
You talking the one down by the electrical vault?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
The UFOs came and got it during the night.
Okay. 'Cause I was going to say, I have a few leads that I might be able to pursue on that. I had pursued one already, and because I know it could be a hazard, especially now with mowing season again, and you're having to mow around it.
So what happened is, this antenna array was, I don't know if it was a university or we don't know if it was the Air Force, but they had a listening device for SETI or whatever, I don't know, search for extraterrestrials, but I caught the guy wire on it back in the fall, and I reported it to Maria immediately and said, call those people, whoever they are. I don't think I got the transmission or the transmitter wire, but it was flopping around. So here a few months ago, I went down there and the computer's been removed that was inside the vault. There's nothing attached to it. It was just a trash pile. Mm-hmm. So it's no longer there. Because somebody could trip over it.
What I believe it is left over from back when Wings of Dreams was here. And they were doing some astronomy things for each month in the fall. And I would come out and actually help them do that and do telescopes and stuff and point out constellations and different things. But one of the gentlemen there that was associated with that, he taught astronomy at the University of Florida. And one of the things that he was really big into was what they call a radio telescope. And that's the acronym for it, I think, is like JOVE, J-O-V-E, and I can't recall right off but basically what it does, it tunes into, and you can hear different emissions that are coming off of Jupiter. So, and I remember it had a very large
Could
antenna.
be the key word.
Yes.
Past tense.
Good. So, okay, well, that's taken care of, so that's, I know it had been addressed, and we had talked about that
didn't know. I
before, and
thought
I
Maria told me it was
thought I might be able to track it down and see if we can get rid of that thing, so it's not a hazard for you guys.
It was associated with a university that was doing, in conjunction with a government contract for some, it was radio-related signaling. It was some atmospheric type testing with radio frequency and waves. They had the computer in the electrical vault.
Sounds like a donut.
So that's, we never heard back from them. A lot of that was remote as far as the data that they were either in transmitting or receiving. So I thought it was still active. And then I did see that it was drooping, a few weeks ago. And so I figured it had been abandoned because we hadn't heard anything back.
Years ago.
It wasn't with Wings of Dreams.
It was at University of Oklahoma, came out here with a satellite truck and we're studying lightning.
Yeah, Doppler, the other
And we
Doppler
come
radar.
here every summer and do that. So we've had a couple of years, but that one there's no longer. It's the hazard's gone.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all.
All right. Camp Landing, Colonel Hunt, good to have you with us.
Yeah, appreciate it. Good evening. As you know, June and July is our busiest month, so we're at max capacity right now. we'll have a throughput of over 8,000 troops this month, and probably the busiest June we've seen in over 10 years. So just with that, obviously, increased throughput is increased training noise with the shooting and the artillery, et cetera. For projects, just to keep you guys advised, the state legislature approved $102.4 million for some infrastructure projects at Camp Blanding. So we'll be constructing a new battalion-sized, 740 personnel, battalion-sized admin and barracks, office, classroom space out at Camp Blanding, something we've been trying to facilitate for quite a while now. So we'll do that. We'll fix a couple of key critical infrastructures, or communications tower and some freezers, but for the most part, that big chunk of that money is going to go into building the infrastructure for over 740 personnel. So it's a good project for us. And we've also signed a contract to build out a gas station on base. So we'll have a small, very streamlined 4-pump gas station on Camp Blanding. So anyway.
For anybody use?
Anybody that can gain access to Camp Blanding will have access to the.
Have some non-ethanol for my boat?
It will have a non-ethanol. Absolutely, it will have a non-ethanol.
And I can draw me
It will
back out to
be
Camp
run
Blanding.
by our PX. So it will generate revenue for us, so we can add to the training center to do more projects like an EV charging, maybe in the future, something like that. So that's what we're looking at. That's all I have for Camp Blanding.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
So
Hopefully I have the answer.
you will, it'll be no.
All right. There you go.
We get a lot of requests for paratrooper recurrency and, well, I think most of it's recurrency, isn't it? They're just doing the required jumps.
They don't want to jump out of a helicopter or anything. I don't know why.
Some of these, like the aircraft will come out of Eglin, it'll be an Air Force aircraft, but it'll be Michigan National Guard or whoever. But a question I have, and maybe I realize when these troops are in a war zone, they don't get all the amenities that are really nice and all that. I don't know how often your Camp Blanding troops that are coming and going work off our field, but they had talked about building. Remember when they were talking about building a pavilion over here for the paratroopers?
Yeah.
Do you think they would entertain buying one of these carports? Maybe a smaller one, maybe 20 feet wide and maybe 30 feet long? Because what happens, they go down there by our electrical vault, and it can be the heat of the day, and as summer comes on, it gets blistering hot. I'm talking about for any troops. They might come from Michigan, Rhode Island, or whoever. I think it's something they might entertain, because I think they can do one of these carports for about $3,500 and just let us pick a place down there.
I'll look at it. I got to obviously get with my.
I mean, we've had it where it started raining down there.
I can tell you how old this idea is. General Burnett was the one that wanted to put one literally right out here on this grass area.
And he wanted to build a big
For that reason.
restrooms and all that.
Yeah,
But I'm
it-
just saying, if they could get a carport, they can buy it from the place up here in Stark. I got one from the lady up there, and I think probably a 20 by 30 you can probably get for $3,500 or $4,000. If there's any discretionary funds that might be available. I mean, I don't know what y'all think about that, but I go down there and it'll be raining and those troops are just standing there in the rain waiting for the airplane to come.
Probably good for them. No, one of the things that we're losing is grit, but
Well, sort of say, I don't want
That's
to
not my
plans, but it's not worth it. So
understand.
if it could just be asked.
I'll look at it.
With the Air Force bathroom, if you remember when that was your records to build an Air Force bathroom, not an outhouse.
I was General Burnett's aide when he was the TAG, and yeah, spent a lot of time.
I've
flying in
heard
and out of
this
here.
plan a couple of times.
Yeah, it gets resurrected and then put back on the shelf, so.
Makes sense. He wanted smart females in the Air Force. He said they should have a shelf, they should have a place to put their purse, you should have a place to hang your helmet while you do your business. I mean,
He was looking at spending, it was like $300,000.
It was a lot, and that was a long time
We don't
ago,
need anything
but
that elaborate, just.
I think what Mr. Fryer is saying is that if the Guard wanted to do that, we can certainly accommodate a space for them.
Okay.
We always support our military and all the operations and missions that involve the airport.
Yes, sir.
So we're just glad to help in that way, so just let us know.
Okay, will do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Seamer?
Well, I went on a little excursion in the non-gated area, fenced-in area, I should say, for palmettos. And from what I could find, they're basically going to be from the road that goes Camp Crystal Lake back toward 100 and down to the end of our property, however far that goes. I'm not a palmetto expert, but I took a bunch of pictures, and if they come to fruition, we'll have a good crop, it appears. I haven't heard back from the company yet. I don't know if they're waiting to see if they're getting other people, to do the same thing and then decide on what the price is going to be. But as soon as I hear something, I thought that I would have known something by now.
If I recall from previously, when we've had this discussion a couple of years ago, don't they harvest like August, September? Isn't that the time frame?
Right.
Okay, because I know Camp Landing does that. They're Paul Catlett and his crew been doing that for several years now, so it'll be interesting to see what they come back.
Yeah, I don't know, but they're.
Yeah, I can link you up with our guy that kind of coordinates it and manages it, so you can kind of figure out how we manage it, or what the seasons are, et cetera.
Sure.
Link them up.
I'd appreciate it, because I'm not an expert on it. I just, Maria mentioned it to me, and I contacted the person that she gave me.
Right.
And, so I did do that. I did break the handle on the Kubota side by side for the windshield, and I replaced it. It didn't cost the airport anything. I broke it, I got it fixed, and it didn't cost me anything. Believe it or not, when I talked to the lady, I said, I sent her an email, and I got a copy of the email, and I said, let me know how to pay, and she wrote it off as warranty.
All right, very good.
So I gave Mike a copy of the little invoice that came with the packing slip, so that if there was any more, because it's an aftermarket windshield.
Yep.
It's not a Kubota. And it was driving us crazy. And but anyway, I took care of that.
So, Mr. Singer, just for our guests, we're talking about palmetto berries that would be harvested, okay? I just want to make sure everybody understood.
Okay.
All right.
The berries.
Yes.
The airport manager, I know Mr. Ludwig, asked about it last month. I believe we can't wait to try to go out and try to find an airport manager. I'm not saying that Mike's not doing a good job or anything else, but as long as we're still in limbo, it's not making them have any extra faith in us to be able to operate like we should. If we're waiting on them, it shows like we're scared to do anything, and we're not. Evidently, with $3.18 million, loan application that we just did. So I believe that we need to go ahead and move forward and get a contract for an airport manager and put it out however we put it out. But I believe, and I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and put that into effect, that we start the search for an airport manager.
So you're putting that in the form of a motion?
Yes, sir.
We have a motion?
I'll second it for discussion, but I was getting a little confused earlier because my brain's still battered from years on the school board, but typically we have a motion and a second, then you discuss, and we're very collegial here, which I appreciate, and discuss and then take a motion and vote, really doesn't matter. But having said that, is there I remember us having a workshop right after I came on. I think February was my first month, and at the end of the month, we had a workshop. We talked about Maria was moving down south of Tampa, I believe, and she would continue to work remote. But is there a reason we've not gone ahead and put out a job ad, an advertisement for that, and fill it, and whomever works here is welcome to apply? I mean,
Mike don't want it.
okay. That makes
And it was discussed last month. It was brought up and discussed last month, and that's why our meeting took so long last month, was there was a lot of things that were brought up. And it was because the city is thinking about doing away with the board and making it like a council.
Okay, well, I caught a little bit of that, and they can do that if
Right.
they can legally do that. That's not here nor there for me, but if we're here and we have the authority to act, then we should. Now, if anybody else gets on and reads the Monitor online and knows they're thinking about it, that will probably scare away any decent prospect we have. I didn't come here tonight to talk about this, but just speaking out loud. If they're coming to a job that might get managed by
Somebody different.
some unknown, then, I still think we should likely move forward with it, but don't be shocked if people, first question they ask is, what happens if the airport authority goes away? Do I want to work for a city council?
So can we back up? What specifically is your motion?
My motion is that we put out the job description that Maria and you had worked on.
Okay, your topic says a contract.
Yeah. Well,
So what, are we talking about a contract? Or
yeah, whatever you want to call it.
There's two different things. A contract is something that we would go in with airport manager that we would have between the board and the contract airport manager, going out for putting a job description out there on whatever media we decide to go with is separate. So that's why I'm asking for clarification.
Well, I didn't know how to word it.
I can help you with that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So I'll withdraw my second, and if you want to make a motion to put out a job advertisement to hire an airport manager, then I would say something along those lines.
Yeah.
You want me to make the motion?
Yeah. Yes.
I move that we put out a job announcement and advertise a vacancy for an airport manager at 42J and take applications.
And I'll second that.
Okay, and so upon that, we'll have some more discussion, if I may.
If we got,
Yeah, because I
I don't know that all that.
I would agree with you. And Mr. Sherbach and I have been discussing it quite a bit in the last 2 or 3 weeks.
This is true.
But we're in limbo. The city is going to take a vote on August 1st as to whether the city takes direct charge of the airport. And if we were to go hire somebody, this is just me, my thoughts. And there was an implication made at the last meeting, I think you made it, that we may already have the right person, that we have somebody we want to shoe in there. We don't, I can assure you. I don't even know who we pick. But we're not about that. We've been transparent with everything we've ever done here, regardless of what people think. But put yourself in the shoes. Would it be fair to hire somebody right now? Because under the governance of this board as it stands, we still are a board, and we can do that. What if the person we hire and the city takes over and they fire that person 6 months later? And we don't know that that'll happen. But what if they say, no, we want to hire them? And they did say, was it in the workshop that they would like to sit with the board and interview?
Right.
But the whole dynamics will change if the city takes back over. And the city works under a contract, like you state. Isn't that correct, that Lynn is
Yes.
contracted?
She's under contract.
But we don't call our employee, they're just an employee, right? There's not a contract per
We
se.
would go into some kind of contract negotiation with this person and salary, benefits, do they have carte blanche to the car, whatever.
There are no benefits.
Whatever, right,
There are no benefits.
All right.
Whatever they are,
Okay.
whatever they are.
Well, let me clarify, just to back up what we talked about last month. We have been working on this. Number one, the job description had to be completely rewritten because it changed over the years of what Ms. Cersei was originally hired to do and what she was doing when she left as airport manager. That's been done. We have also prepared a contract that Mr. Taylor is looking at, verbiage for that potential new airport manager. That's being done. Because we don't know what the city's going to do, ethically, myself, I would not support going out to hire anybody because I don't think it's fair to that individual. Now, I'm like you. Mike's doing a great job. His staff is doing a great job. I'll tell you, just because of what we were paying Ms. Cersei and what Mike's getting paid, and the fact that we provide vacation and sick leave, and that's all the benefits we can afford to provide, it's going to be tough. It's going to be real tough. I've had conversations with Ms. Lynn at City Hall about, could we somehow go in with them and we could get medical health insurance for our employees. It's just astronomically expensive for us to do that. And then there's some other legal issues with that too. But quite frankly, we're going to find if the city decides to leave the airport authority as is, when we go out, I hope it's not this way, but only because of what I know we pay or what we can afford to pay, and the fact that we don't have any other benefits that we can afford other than sick leave and vacation time. It may be challenging. But in the interim between now and August, I would vote no on your motion. I'll just be right up front with you because ethically, I can't see us hiring someone and bringing them on with the uncertainty that Mr. Van Zandt has talked about, of whether this board is still going to be in existence or it's going to be all under the city.
Yeah, but why isn't that brought up it would be in the interview process when people start applying for it?
But what do we?
But we're not making any progress if we just keep holding back no matter what. And if worst case scenario, let city council be involved as well with this whole process, because again, we all, for the most part, we're all appointed by them as it is anyway. So they probably should be a part of this regardless.
And we talked about that, about having two of the council members involved in that interview team for a prospective airport manager. Guys, listen, we've all been dealing with this since January. So we're not having any issues with staff with what we're doing now. I don't see the need to hurry and try to do something between now and August, but that's up to the board to vote on.
Yeah.
But that's just my concerns.
I just look at it as this. I believe the reason that the council is having any questions about the authority is because you look, there's 3 new members, actually 4, once he gets appointed, or whatever the city council has to do for the colonel. 4 members out of 7. They're wanting something done. They're not wanting people just to sit back and do nothing.
I don't agree with that. Because nobody from that city council has come to us and said, hey, you need to get off your butt and go hire somebody.
I'm not saying that they have come up and said that, David.
Then you just said.
No, I'm saying they're wanting us to do something.
We have been doing, we've prepared everything we can up to that point.
And I'll call a point of order on it. There was a motion and a second.
All right. Any more discussion?
I do want to have clarity as far as I wasn't insinuating that y'all already picked somebody. What I did is bring up a quote that came from the workshop, and it was said that we haven't advertised the spot yet because we're looking for the right fit. Okay, so I wasn't insinuating that you already had somebody. I just said that.
No, you specifically said, well, you may have somebody already in mind, or do you have somebody in mind?
No, I said, so does that mean that you already have somebody, and then
Right.
then once you have somebody, then you advertise for it, and then you go ahead and pick that person? I know that, but that's what I'm saying, because the quote that came out of the workshop that said, we haven't even advertised for it yet because we're looking for the right fit. And that's what I'm saying. Do you not see where that comes in play, where it looks like, well, we'll advertise it once we find the right fit? That's all I'm saying. That's where I was trying.
The right fit, for instance, like you said, you're probably going to have to find somebody that's retired, that has military benefits, for instance, that has their health insurance and all that. They're going to have to be a right fit, and that we need them to be customer oriented. We have a very good bunch of tenants here. They need to be able to work with our engineering. They need to be able to multitask. They need to be able to be overwhelmed. All those things.
Right. And anybody that would apply for that should have experience in that. And we wouldn't consider somebody that had no experience. Somebody that just came from McDonald's, wouldn't come and apply for this. We all understand that. They're going to have some background in aviation, whether it's
And that exactly, you're right, because you're not going to get anybody that's going to fit all those credentials on there for the money we're paying. Honestly.
We won't know until we try.
Right, we won't. So he's got a point of order.
All right.
Actually calling the question to take a vote.
Yeah.
Well, just one thought here on this. As it was stated, the job description has been rewritten. The airport attorney is reviewing that or has reviewed it.
Contract, a proposed contract.
Proposed contract for that job description. And I can see the thought of, well, go ahead and advertise and let's see what kind of applicants, submit something. But then I'm thinking that the attorney's work isn't quite done on that. And so if there's, we could advertise and let applicants know that there could be a change in governance of the airport, potentially. At this point, that potential change is only 60 days away for a yay or nay.
All right. Well, Mr. Seymour has called for a question. So we have a motion before us with a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Did you get that, Ms. Jennifer? So raise your hand. Let's do a raise hand vote.
Okay.
All opposed? Mr. Delgenay?
Undecided?
Did you abstain?
No, I voted
He
in
voted.
favor of the motion that I made.
No, I'm saying I'm undecided.
Oh, okay. I'm not going to lose any sleep either way over tonight. We don't have, the barn's not on fire.
Yeah.
I would like to get moving with it. Thank you.
I elect to not participate in the vote.
You can't, actually.
Oh, good.
Because you haven't been appointed.
I had a couple people look at me.
Is that not correct?
No.
Yeah,
You haven't been approved or
Perfect.
a representative. The approved representative from Camp Landing. We appreciate the info though tonight.
Should you not have a date though, associated with it, just to say to post the job, I think you should include a date.
Well,
Because I think the ayes have it, don't they?
yes, it's a pass.
Date then?
The whole reason I'm saying this, Scott, is that if we sit around on our hands and don't do anything, it looks like we're not doing anything, and we're not acting as a
We're not sitting
board.
around on hands not doing anything. We've just borrowed $3.18 million. We've approved these contracts.
I understand
I'm
that.
stating, I agree. We agree to disagree, but you've made your motion. I'm just saying, when do you want the job posting done by?
As soon as we can get a job description
Okay, that's all I'm looking for.
doing. I don't know when to, that was the other thing I was going to ask was,
Yeah, just for
As
clarity.
soon as.
Yes, would this be something Mike, as the acting airport manager, would put out on Indeed and those things?
Well, that was going to be my follow-up question was,
Yeah.
so the motion was approved. How do we go about implementing that with what services that are out there to post this job at?
Because you were talking about looking to the Florida Airports Council.
There's Florida
But I
Airports
don't know that
Council,
we can do that.
we could
It's a unique position.
see if they have don't recall if they have like a classified or employment section. Are you familiar?
Indeed.com and the Florida Airports Council would be the ideal
So
place. to post out with
there's a site that we could look at, Florida Airports Council. I know that Maria and I met with a gentleman, Ed Christmas. I'll just always remember his name because it's so unique. He is a professor up at Valdosta Americas, Georgia, a technical college there. And they do aviation management as well as A&P, avionics. They do the whole realm of aviation. Very renowned technical college. That's another resource that we could utilize as well.
And honestly, we could get somebody that's fresh off the college script that may not be 18 years old, may be older. I know of a guy I worked with at the fire department. When he retired, he went to airport. He was trying to get his commercial license, but before he could get his commercial license, he was going to be too old. And so he went into airport management.
Well, one of the things our job description does require is experience. So that will just have to be looked at. But there is a stipulation in the job description of that experience.
And it's just that we need to move.
All right, moving on. Next item.
I got a question on that, though. So the city did verbally convey that they would like to sit in on the interviews. So what are the legal ramifications of this being an independent board that they have appointed? Would they just like to be in the room, or, because I can see the city's concern, but what about the legal ramifications?
Can I suggest this?
Well, wait, please.
Sure.
And then, but, let's say Ms. Thompson and Mr. Brown wanted to sit on or they were appointed by their peers to sit on this thing. Would they have a vote towards the airport manager? Or would it just be board members from the airport approve it? This is why we say we're in this.
I think because of the action that we've taken and the board wants to move forward with hiring somebody, it's still going to be this board's decision. They could participate in the process.
Okay.
And the idea was, I think I'd spoken last week about the mayor being one of the persons, but again, that's for them to decide who they would like to provide. I guess the question I have, Ms. Taylor, is if there's, who's going to make up, if board members, some board member, well, it doesn't matter if there's more than two of us, on the interview committee, would that be treated just like anything else under sunshine law, that would have to be posted for public?
Yeah, got that right too.
Say that again, Dave?
Okay, so if say there's three board members that are part of the interview board,
Oh, yeah.
so it would have to be posted. So that's something else that we just have to keep in mind, that when we go to have an interview, or if we're going to line them up all the same day, however that might be, then we just need to keep in mind, to comply with sunshine, we got to do that.
Sure.
The public can attend the interview?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Happens in Florida school boards all the time where they hire the superintendent by
Yeah.
elected
If it
board
happens
members.
to the university, it
Yeah,
happens a lot.
okay.
They get to make comments about you if you're applying for the job. It's wonderful. So I was not trying to interrupt.
And I'm sorry I cut you off.
No, no,
Just
no,
trying to
no.
finish my thought.
All I would say is, you know, as the intergovernmental guy, if we can figure out how to go ahead and get it advertised, and I worked in human resources in the Guard for 1,000,000 years, I'll be glad if you want to reach out and ask anything, but I will go to the next city council meeting and ask for some clear direction and bring back to the next meeting here some kind of proposal that makes sense on how to hire an airport manager, the specifics. And that should be, you know, well in, I would assume we'd advertise this for at least 30 days, maybe 45, see what's out there. Before we get to the interview, I'll have some kind of sketched out plan y'all can poke holes in or vote up or down or whatever you want to do with it.
And I think with that
move
time
forward
frame
and
then-
what their involvement can
Right.
be and, you know.
That coincides then with their deadline.
Yeah.
All right, moving on.
The next one I'm going to leave alone, and I'm just going to go to, I would like to see a double entry accounting instead of the single entry that like we get now, because we can't, you can't tell where you're at in your budget. I can't make heads or tails of it. With a double entry, at least we'd be able to know, well, we paid this much out and this is what was budgeted. But with single entry, it just doesn't, you can't make heads or tails from month to month. So,
CPA,
sir?
your CPA?
No, sir, but I have had business management.
Okay.
So,
I say Ms. Cersei forwarded your question to Ms. Rebecca, our
CPA.
CPA
okay,
for the airport.
okay.
She responded, and I'll read her email back. He doesn't know what he's asking for. We use a double entry accounting method to prepare the reports. All the accounts are listed on the balance sheet and profit and loss statement with the balance for the month. So please ask exactly what he is wanting. So we're already doing what you're proposing.
Okay, well, I'll just drop it. I'm done.
Okay. All right, Mr. Sherbach,